stop. Whatever you are carrying in your hands right now, set it down in your heart for a moment. What I am about to say is not for everyone listening. It is for you. You have been living with a private ache that people around you do not see. You have smiled through it, answered messages through it, kept your obligations through it, and still carried that quiet sense that something in your life is waiting at a door that will not open by force. And tonight I am not here to entertain you. I am here to name what has been moving under the surface of your life, to show you why the pressure has felt so specific, and to speak a declaration over you by the end that will make this message feel less like discovery and more like recognition. Stay with me. By the time we close, you are going to understand the signs that have been repeating around you with unsettling precision. You are going to see the pattern underneath those signs, the one that has shaped how you have been carrying your hunger. You are going to hear the deeper root of it, the older wound beneath the pattern, and then you are going to hear what return looks like when the burden finally stops pretending to be your identity. I'm not speaking in generalities. I'm speaking to the part of you that has been asking why the same feeling keeps returning at the same hour, why certain conversations now feel thin, why your spirit keeps leaning toward a future that your current life has not yet caught up to. This message reached you with intention, not because you happen to be scrolling, but because something in you has already begun to answer before your mind had words for it. There are moments when a person hears what their own life has been trying to say all along, and they know, without needing anyone to prove it, that the timing is exact. Something has been happening to you. You may have noticed that you wake at the same hour more often than seems natural, not once in a while, but enough times that your body has started to remember the hour before your mind does. You lie there in the quiet, and the room feels different than it used to, not threatening, just charged, as if your inner life has arrived early and is waiting for your attention. You may have noticed that certain mornings carry a heaviness that does not match the facts of the day. Nothing is wrong. Attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise, learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Nothing is wrong on paper, and yet your spirit feels as if it has walked a long distance before sunrise. Then, without warning, the heaviness lifts, and you cannot explain why. That is not randomness. That is a pattern of arrival. It is your inner world refusing to stay asleep. You may have noticed that old conversations now sound hollow in your memory. What once felt convincing no longer carries the same weight. Words that used to reassure you now feel small. Promises that used to anchor you now seem unable to hold the shape of what you have become. That is not bitterness growing in you. That is depth. And you may have noticed that numbers, repeated sequences, little alignments, and impossible timing keep appearing in ordinary places. A receipt, a clock, a page number. A song that begins the exact moment your thoughts are turning towards something you never told anyone. These things are not there to distract you. They are there to arrest your numbness. They are saying, in the language of repetition, that your life is no longer moving by accident. If you have been wondering whether these things mean something, they do. They are confirmations. The waking hour is not punishment. It is invitation. The heaviness is not failure. It is calibration. The hollow sound of old exchanges is not rejection, it is alignment. The repeated signs are not there because you are losing your mind. They are there because you are finally noticing the shape of your own becoming. And I want to say this carefully because your heart needs it with gentleness. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not imagining a door where there is only a wall. What has been happening is subtler than fear and truer than doubt. Your awareness is sharpening, and anything sharpened will begin to cut through what once held it still. Take a breath with me. Let that land in you before you rush past it. If even one of those signs has been sitting close to your life, if your shoulders dropped when you heard one of them, then type the number 888 in the comments. That number carries the feeling of overflow, of something that is no longer just waiting but moving. Type 888, then come right back to me, because beneath those signs is something deeper than a season. Beneath the repetition is a pattern, and once you see the pattern, you stop negotiating with shadows. The pattern is this: you have been trying to force open what only answers to recognition. You have been applying loyalty where surrender is needed, pressure where trust is needed, and effort where alignment is needed. You have been carrying your hunger as if hunger itself could become the key, when in truth, hunger is only the signal that you were built for a different door. That is why certain places have begun to feel too small. That is why old methods feel heavier than before. That is why you keep arriving at the edge of something and then sensing, even before you name it, that pushing harder will not help. Your life is not resisting you in the way you fear. It is exposing the futility of dragging the wrong weight into the right future. You have likely noticed this in relationships too. You keep giving more than the exchange requires. You keep offering understanding to what has already made its choice. You keep showing up with sincerity where the connection has already thinned. This is not because you are naive. It is because you were trained to believe that endurance is always holy, even when endurance has become a substitute for discernment. And so the pattern continues. You keep proving, you keep waiting. You keep hoping that one more explanation, one more conversation, one more sacrifice will finally turn the lock. But some doors do not open because they are waiting for more force. They open when you stop treating your own exhaustion as if it were obedience. I need you to hear the distinction. The pattern is not that you are weak. The pattern is that you have been loyal to a route that no longer matches the shape of your assignment. You have been faithful in the wrong direction. You have been sincere in a place that is no longer receiving sincerity as life. That is a painful sentence to hear, but it is also a freeing one. Because once you see the pattern, you can stop blaming your soul for what was really a misalignment of direction. You can stop calling delay a verdict. You can stop calling resistance a personality flaw. You can stop interpreting every closed hand as if it were proof that you were not chosen. No, the deeper truth is more precise than that. The cost of staying in this pattern has been quiet, but it has been real. It has made you tired in places that should have been tender. It has made you suspicious of your own instincts. It has made you postpone joy, as if joy were something you had to earn after you solved every unfinished thing around you. And the longer you stay inside that cycle, the more you begin to think that depletion is simply the price of being someone who cares deeply. But depletion is not your calling. Stay with me, because what comes next is the layer underneath the layer. What I see beneath this pattern is not a flaw, but a formation. I see a courtyard, not a noisy court where everyone speaks at once, but an inner courtyard, old and enclosed, built with walls that once kept something alive from being lost. You have lived from inside that courtyard for so long that you thought the walls were your identity. At first, the courtyard was protection. It was the place where your earliest self learned how to survive the weather outside. It was where you learned which parts of you could be spoken and which parts had to stay silent. It was where you learned that some feelings were safer unvoiced, that some hopes were too expensive, and that being small could sometimes look like wisdom. But over time, what protected you began to confine you. The courtyard became familiar, familiar became sacred, sacred became untouchable. And now, even when the gate stands open, a part of you still waits for permission to leave. This is why the pattern has persisted. It was built around an old idea of safety. It was built around an old misunderstanding that said, if you stay contained, if you stay manageable, if you stay predictable, then nothing precious will be taken from you again. So you learned to live from the center of the courtyard, listening to the world through stone, measuring your longing against the thickness of the walls. And because you are wise, you adapted. You made order from what hurt. You made ritual from what was uncertain. You made dignity from restraint. But no matter how beautifully a wall is maintained, it is still a wall. And no matter how faithfully a courtyard is tended, it is still not the open sky. Perhaps this is why you have felt the urge to retreat from certain voices, certain demands, certain rooms, not because you are withdrawing from life, but because your spirit is beginning to notice the difference between a place that contains you and a place that receives you. Those are not the same thing. The older formation beneath this has not been your enemy in the simple sense. It was your defense. It was the architecture of a season when you needed shelter more than expansion. But now the season has shifted, and the same walls that once preserved your tenderness are beginning to keep your voice from reaching the air. You were not made to live forever in preservation. You were made for movement. You were made for breath. You were made for a larger horizon than the one your fear assigned you. And here is the tender mystery. The courtyard does not need to be destroyed. It needs to be remembered as a place you pass through, not a place you must inhabit forever. The walls do not have to be torn down in violence. They only need to lose their authority over what you are now becoming. If that image is landing in you, if you can feel the courtyard opening just enough to let a different kind of light in, type the words, "I am home," in the comments. Let it be your witness that the place you were guarding is no longer the place you must remain. Type "I'm home," then come back to me, because the return is already underway. The answer is not that you must become harder. The answer is not that you must build a stronger shell, a louder voice, a more polished performance, or a better defense. The answer is that you are being asked to return to the self that existed before fear taught you to live inside the courtyard. Return means you stop asking every moment to justify your existence. Return means you stop translating every silence as abandonment. Return means you stop calling your numbness wisdom when it is simply tiredness asking to be cared for with honesty. Return means you allow your life to be received again, one small opening at a time. You do not need to earn your way back into wholeness. You do not need to become impressive enough to deserve peace. You do not need to solve every unfinished chapter before you are allowed to breathe deeply. What you need is not a new performance. What you need is a new orientation. There are two simple anchors for this season, and they are not burdens. They are permissions. The first is what I call the morning gate. Before you reach for the day, before you absorb the noise, before you answer the demands waiting on the other side of your mind, sit for a moment and speak one honest sentence. I belong to what is open, not to what is closed. Let that be the first step out of the courtyard. Let it remind your body that opening is not danger. The second is what I call the evening clearing. Before sleep, name one thing you carried that was never yours to carry alone, not the whole life. Just one thing, a fear, a resentment, a disappointment, a responsibility that turned into a weight. Name it, and then release it inwardly as if placing it back at the threshold. This is not self-help. This is stewardship. You are learning to tend your inner ground instead of tramping it down with constant vigilance. Do not rush these practices. Do not perform them. Receive them. The first is for orientation, the second is for release. Together they teach your spirit that it is safe to live by openness again. And as you do this, something else begins to happen. The courtyard changes. What once felt like enclosure begins to look like memory. What once felt like the whole world begins to reveal itself as one small chapter of your formation. You start to notice air where there was only stone. You start to notice distance where there was only pressure. You start to notice that the gate was not locked as often as you thought. Sometimes it was only heavy because fear asked you to believe it was sealed. That is why this message is not asking you to fight your way forward. It is asking you to remember your way back. Back to softness without collapse. Back to clarity without harshness. Back to trust without naivety. Back to the part of you that can stand at the threshold and know the difference between a wall and a doorway. There is one more layer in this, and it matters more than the rest if you have been carrying shame for how long this has taken. You did not invent this courtyard. You inherited pieces of it. You inherited the caution. You inherited the silence around certain needs. You inherited the reflex to keep going when the soul wanted to speak. Somewhere along the line, love and survival got braided together so tightly that you began to believe you could only be safe if you stayed contained. But that was never the final design. It was only the method you learned from those who had to endure before they could expand. And you are now standing at the place where endurance is no longer the whole story. You are allowed to become visible to your own life again. You are allowed to notice what you want without apologizing for wanting it. You are allowed to trust that what has been opening inside you is not a betrayal of the past, but the fulfillment of what the past could not yet carry. If something in this message has confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your amen without words. Not as a metric, as an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. Sit with that for a moment. Let it settle into the part of you that has waited longest to hear it. There is someone in your life who has come to mind while you have been listening. You know the face, quietly tired, secretly seeking, carrying a posture nobody else fully sees. Maybe they are the one who keeps showing up for everyone and rarely tells the truth about their own ache. Maybe they are the one who looks composed but has been standing at their own threshold for a long time. Maybe they are the one who needs the exact words you have just received because their own courtyard has felt just as closed. Send this to them, not as a recommendation, as a delivery, the same way it was delivered to you tonight, by appointment. And as you send it, understand this: you are not scattering words into the air. You are extending a witness. You are saying that no one has to remain trapped inside the old walls forever. You are naming the possibility of return for someone else the way it was named for you. Before this closes, type the words "I am the one" in the comments, not as a wish, not as a performance, as a confirmation that the self who was waiting behind the walls is no longer hidden from you. Type it slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. You are being confirmed. You are being gathered back. You are being led to the gate. You are not forgotten. You are not late. You are not too far gone. You are stepping into what was always waiting for you. Right now, all across the world, there are others receiving the same recognition in their own quiet hour. They are hearing the same tenderness. They are feeling the same release from old pressure. They are standing at their own threshold and realizing that the door was never meant to stay closed forever. You are part of a turning that does not need to announce itself to be real. It is sealed. You are being confirmed. You are being gathered back. You are being led to the gate. You are not forgotten. You are not late. You are not too far gone. You are stepping into what was always waiting for you. Right now, all across the world, there are others receiving the same recognition in their own quiet hour. They are hearing the same tenderness. They are feeling the same release from old pressure. They are standing at their own threshold and realizing that the door was never meant to stay closed forever. You are part of a turning that does not need to announce itself to be real. It is sealed. You are being called back into the open. 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 And what was once sealed in fear now breathes with quiet certainty. You are being called back into the open, and what was once sealed in fear now breathes with quiet certainty. You are being called back into the open. 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 Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.